When I was a child, silence followed me more faithfully than people did. It sat beside me in classrooms, leaned against my shoulder on school buses, waited with me at lunch tables where no one asked questions. It wasn't heavy back then. It was simply there, like a shadow that learned my shape early and decided not to leave. Teachers called my name, and I answered when required. Classmates spoke around me, not to me. I learned quickly that participation was optional if you were quiet enough. No one chased what didn't move. At home, I was known as the easy one, the child who caused no trouble, the one who stayed in his room, who finished homework without reminders, who didn't argue. Adults praised this as maturity. They said I was wise for my age. I didn't know what wisdom was. I only knew how to disappear without leaving the room. My sibling filled the house with sound, laughter, complaints, footsteps that echoed down the hallway. I learned the rhythm of their presence, learned when to speak and when not to interrupt it. Most of the time, I chose not to. It wasn't fear that kept me quiet. It was calculation. Words felt permanent, and permanence felt risky. Silence, at least, could be revised later. At school, there were moments I wanted to speak, small ones, correcting a mistake on the board, adding a thought to a discussion, telling someone I liked their drawing. Each time, the moment passed before I decided it was safe. Someone else spoke instead. The class moved on. The world rarely waited. I became very good at watching. I noticed how confident children interrupted without apology, how laughter arrived in groups, never alone, how teachers smiled longer at students who filled the air. I studied these things the way other children studied sports scores or card games. During recess, I walked the edges of the playground. I wasn't excluded, I was simply unclaimed. There's a difference. Exclusion hurts loudly. Being unclaimed feels quieter, almost polite. Sometimes a friend would orbit close enough to talk. We'd exchange a few sentences about homework or games. I never pushed for more. When the conversation drifted away, I let it go. Holding on felt like asking for something I hadn't earned. Adults asked me if I had friends. I said yes, because technically I did. They asked if I was happy. I said yes, because I didn't know how to measure happiness without comparing it to something worse. In class photos, I stood where they placed me, middle row, neutral expression, looking directly at the camera, but not at anyone in particular. Years later, I would study those photos and realize how early I learned to look present while feeling distant. There were days I came home with stories, but no one asked for them. Not out of neglect, out of assumption. Quiet children are assumed to have quiet lives. So I kept the stories to myself. There was a boy in my class who once asked me why I never talked. Not unkindly, just curious. I told him I didn't have much to say. He nodded, satisfied with the answer, and never asked again. That was the end of it. But it wasn't true. I had plenty to say. I just didn't know how to release it without losing control of it. Words felt like doors. Once opened, anyone could walk through. During group projects, I did the work others didn't want to do. Writing, organizing, fixing mistakes quietly before submission. Teachers praised the group. No one asked who did what. That suited me fine. At home, my parents spoke about me with relief. They said, "He's independent. He doesn't need much." They were right. I didn't need much from them. Or maybe I learned early not to. Nighttime was when my thoughts became loudest. Lying in bed, replaying conversations I never joined. Imagining better versions of myself who spoke at the right time, who said the clever thing, who was remembered. These versions felt fictional, like characters I admired but never auditioned to play. In the morning, I returned to being myself, quiet, contained, acceptable. There were moments of connection though, rare but real. Sitting beside someone on a bus while rain streaked the window, sharing a look during a boring assembly, being chosen last for a team and feeling oddly relieved. Expectations are lighter when no one bets on you. I learned that being unnoticed came with freedom. No one watched closely. No one demanded explanations. If I failed, it was expected. If I succeeded, it was surprising but brief. Still, there was a cost. When teachers asked for volunteers, my hand stayed down even when I knew the answer. When classmates laughed, I smiled a second late, unsure if I was allowed to join. I learned to arrive emotionally after everyone else, as if waiting for permission that never came. Once, a teacher asked me to read aloud. My voice sounded unfamiliar in the room, thinner than it felt in my head. A few students turned to look. No one mocked me, nothing bad happened, but the exposure lingered, like standing under a light too bright to ignore. After class, no one mentioned it. The moment passed, but I remembered it for years. Silence teaches you to measure risk in strange ways. By the time school years stacked into memory instead of days, I was known as the quiet one. Not unfriendly, not strange, just quiet. Labels stick when they're convenient. I didn't try to correct it. Correcting it would have required speaking. There were times I wondered who I might be if I talked more, if I let words escape without rehearsing them, if I trusted that I could take up space without apology. Those questions stayed hypothetical, safer that way. I watched others grow louder, bolder, more certain. I grew inward. I learned patience, observation, endurance. Some people mistake that for strength. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's just adaptation. I don't remember deciding to be this way. I only remember realizing one day that the quiet had settled in permanently, not as a phase, as a structure. And once something becomes a structure, you stop noticing it. You just live inside it. Years later, people would tell me I was hard to read, that I seemed distant, that I felt calm in situations that made others anxious. They didn't see the work it took to hold everything inside. As a child, I didn't know I was practicing for that future. I was just learning how to exist without being questioned. And at the time, that felt like safety. It took much longer to realize it was also a kind of loneliness.